What's up YouTube? This is Felix, and you might have read the title of this video and thought, is this guy an idiot? Obviously the monsters are just people in costumes. Does this guy even watch Scooby-Doo? First of all, yes, I've watched a lot of Scooby-Doo, and if you're saying things like that, probably more than you, because this question is actually quite nuanced, as you'll see. And more than just answering the question, are the monsters in Scooby-Doo real? I want to explore sort of the continuity in the Scooby-Doo universe, and mainly focusing on the reality of the supernatural, or are the monsters real? But first, what is Scooby-Doo? Now, I could give a long, comprehensive history of the different shows over the past 50 or so years and my opinions on them. And I'm not just saying that, I could do that, and I have a lot of opinions. But instead, I'm going to let my boy Freddie Prinze Jr. explain them for you. Take it away, Freddie.
It is brilliant American literature. And I don't care what anybody, it is. It should be taught in schools.
Amen. Any candidate who promises to have Freddie Prinze Jr. as their Secretary of Education will get my vote in 2028. So there's been a lot of iterations of Scooby-Doo throughout the years, and they all usually contain the same 5 characters and similar themes and stuff, but there's little differences here and there. But they're all sort of meant to be separate from each other, because as you'll see, they have contradicting lores. In fact, I view each iteration as a separate universe within the entire Scooby-Doo multiverse. The closest thing we've seen to like a multiverse, No Way Home crossover is in Cyber Chase, when they meet like AI versions of themselves who are modeled after sort of the older versions. Although there was a comic book titled The Crisis of Infinite Scoobies, a reference to the DC Infinite Universes storyline, whatever, in which different versions of the characters all came together. Regardless, there's lots of differences between the shows and the movies. The characters are basically the same. One thing that kind of changes is the relationships between them. Mainly Fred and Daphne, they're kind of the it couple, but their relationship does vary. In the older shows, there's like not really any mention of relationship. In What's New Scooby-Doo, it's more implied than anything. I don't think they ever really explicitly say it. Mystery Incorporated actually explores their relationship a little bit more.
I'm tired of being afraid. I have feelings, world, for Traps and Daphne. I'm a guy no more. I'm coming, Daphne!
So true, Fred. But that's not the only one that specifies the nature of their relationship. I think in one of the live-action movies they get engaged, but I don't really remember. In the direct-to-video movies, if they're not in a relationship, they're either like flirty or they're trying to make each other jealous. Velma and Shaggy only pursue a relationship twice, once in Mystery Incorporated, and then once in one of the live-action movies, and it doesn't work out either time. And each of the characters have had other relationships throughout the years. Some of the characters have evolved, notably Daphne. Originally, she was danger-prone Daphne, always getting into trouble, damsel in distress, but then she sort of learned how to fend for herself and became more of an asset to the group. Velma originally she just wanted to look for clues and solve it, but then she's taken on more of a leadership role as the show has gone on. At this point, I should mention, I have not watched Velma. I wrote all this before that show came out, and based on what I've heard, I have no intention of watching it. And it will not be mentioned from here on out. But other than those things like the traits and the behavior... Did you guys see that? Anyways, the traits and the behaviors of the characters haven't really changed that much over the years. Even their clothes are pretty much the same the whole time. The only time it changes, in the 90s, Fred and Daphne had these like business casual fits going on, and then Shaggy had a red shirt era in the 80s. But while the characters are pretty consistent, a lot of things about their lives... Oop, my microphone's flipped around. A lot of things about their lives tend to change. Their hometown has changed a couple times. It's usually Coolsville, but in Mystery Incorporated, the Lego Scooby-Doo movies, and Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, it was changed to Crystal Cove. Their backstory has also differed. A pup named Scooby-Doo depicts them all as children, and it establishes that Shaggy picked up Scooby from a puppy farm. Scoob shows them all meeting as children at the beginning of the movie, and Shaggy and Scooby they run into each other at the beach. Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins shows their origin story, having them meet as teenagers. And Scooby falls out of a truck and ends up at Shaggy's house, and that's how they meet. And the rest of them meet in the only way that a diverse group of teenagers from different backgrounds have been meeting since 1985, detention. In Mystery Incorporated, there's a much more like cosmic, otherworldly reason for their meeting, but I don't want to spoil anything. Each character's parents have showed up several times throughout the years, but there's very little consistency with their families. Appearances of extended families are pretty common. These are family trees for all the main characters. It's pretty rare for characters like this to make repeat appearances. So I guess they all just have very large extended families. In the 70s and 80s, they featured a lot of Scooby's family, but as it turns out, every single member of his family except for him are extremely annoying. The ages of the character are also pretty inconsistent, but they're usually like teenagers. Obviously in A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, they're kids, but usually I assume they're like 16 to 19. Like they can drive, so at least 16, but it usually doesn't really say. Some of the shows and movies show them in high school or like preparing for college, but usually they're just like on the road traveling. But they don't really say if it's like summer vacation or like they've already graduated or what the deal is. The only time they're older than teenagers is in the live action Scooby-Doo movies, the original ones. Scooby, being an adult Great Dane, is probably around 7. Although according to this theory I found online, Scooby and his family may be the result of some genetic experiment which causes them to not only talk but have longer lifespans. I also couldn't find this theory again when I went back to look for it, so I don't remember really what the explanation was, but hopefully it's true because I don't want my boy to die. Technology in the real world has changed a lot since 1969, and so, the show follows suit. As the years go on, they get computers and smartphones and more updated technology. At the beginning of Scoob, Shaggy is seen listening to music on a smartphone, and actually I want to talk about this for a second. I don't know how well you can see it, but half the icons on his screens are like music from different decades. Like we got soft hits of the 70s and sweet songs of the 60s. Or some of the icons are podcasts, like we got this All Sports Stuff podcast and Motivational Message Radio, hosted by radio personality Ira Glass, which is ultimately what he chooses to listen to. But I assume these are shortcuts to playlists and podcasts and not like actual apps, because that wouldn't really make any sense. But still, it's just kind of a weird detail. I don't know. Although I do appreciate that the date is accurate, because this scene does take place on Halloween. Got a little off on a tangent there, but the fact that Shaggy was listening to a sports podcast is a little bit of a continuity problem, because it's kind of established that Shaggy and Scooby don't really care about sports. In fact, there's a couple scenes, and this one's from What's New Scooby-Doo, and the second one is from Scooby-Doo The Mystery Begins, where Shaggy and Fred try to bond over sports, but it doesn't work. Let's take a look-see.
Did you see the game last night?
I'm not really into sports.
Oh, you're right.
So, the Bears really slaughtered those Dolphins last night, huh?
Oh, what? That's terrible. Who in their right mind bring bears to the beach?
No, not real. You don't watch a lot of sports, do you, Shay?
The answer was no. Although they have been shown to be fans of WWE. One of the most iconic parts of the show is, of course, Scooby Snacks. One of the biggest inconsistencies with Scooby Snacks is whether the snack is named for the dog or vice versa. In The Mystery Begins, Shaggy invents Scooby Snacks and he names them after Scooby. They're also not a dog treat in this one, I think. Usually it is a dog treat, and I guess that's part of the joke that Shaggy likes dog treats, but sometimes they're just a normal snack. It's usually a packaged product like this. Twice they visited the factory. In A Pup Named Scooby-Doo, they visited the Coolsville location, right here. And in What's New Scooby-Doo, they visited the Munchville, Ohio location. Also, the spelling is different. In this one, it's CK, and this one, it's with an X. You can't really see it. It's also an international product. There's a Russian beet-flavored version and a Japanese version. In Be Cool Scooby-Doo, we see the origin of Scooby Snacks. They're originally called Sorcerer Snacks, and the gang solves a mystery at the factory or whatever, and in honor of them solving this mystery, the owner renames it to Scooby Snacks. Also, I know the animation style is terrible in Be Cool Scooby-Doo, but it's kind of a funny show. It's kind of funny. It's better than Velma. I assume. I haven't watched Velma. Anyways, that episode is also kind of dark because it kind of shows that like Shaggy and Scooby are very much addicted to Scooby snacks, and their friends kind of use them to get Shaggy and Scooby to do whatever they want. And it's a very common trope in the show for them to be like, hey, can you do this thing? And they're like, And they're like, well, will you do it for a Scooby snack? And they're like, yeah, we will. And it's kind of funny. But now we know that it's actually just friends taking advantage of a very serious addiction. On a lighter note, in Scoob, when Shaggy and Scooby meet, Scooby doesn't have a name, and Shaggy is at the beach eating these Scooby snacks, and then the dog catcher shows up, and he's like, hey, is this your dog? And Shaggy says, yes. And he says, prove it, what's his name? And Shaggy goes, Scooby. And that's how he got his name. I assume in most iterations, because it's like a packaged product, that Scooby was named for the snack, but usually they don't say. In fact, it could even be a coincidence. My boy Dracula also makes an appearance 5 times in the Scooby-Doo media, although one of them, this one, it was a guy in a costume. The other 4, it was actually Dracula. And each time he has a very different personality, and he's meeting the gang as if for the first time, which sort of leads us into the main topic, what you've all been waiting for, the reality of the supernatural. Of course, the stereotype in Scooby-Doo is that when they catch the monster, they pull the mask off, and it's just some guy, some old Farmer Jenkins, in a ghost costume, and he says, I would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for you meddling kids and that dumb dog. Although sometimes, like, the man in a costume doesn't really explain it all. Like this episode, for example. How did he do that? It was a guy in, like, a cylinder. This is what it was. He was in this, like, machine with real snow on the outside. And I don't know, how does he grow legs? Like, he throws the snowman's head, and then it smiles after he throws it. That's not the only episode that does it either. Like, there's a few where it doesn't really add up. Like, they explain at the end how he did all that stuff. And like, well, I don't know if that explains everything. But it is a children's show, so I will let it slide. Regardless, the ghosts and ghouls in Scooby-Doo are never actually real, which makes it all the more scary when they are. Real supernatural elements have made several appearances throughout the years. Perhaps the best argument for my multiverse theory is that every time they encounter the supernatural is like for the first time. They're like, what? They're real? Every time. Like, if it was all one universe, I think after the first time they would have figured it out. But anyways, the normal unmasking stuff happens in most of the shows. Mystery Incorporated does have a lot of those type of episodes, but overall it delves more into the supernatural, so I didn't include it on this list. In all of these shows, there's only one episode that I know of in which the monster was real. It was an episode of What's in Scooby-Doo, and I will not tell you which one. And pretty much all of the direct-to-video movies, except for a few that I'll mention, were kind of the same thing where they unmasked a villain in a costume. Overall, real supernatural elements are only present in 4 shows and 13 movies. Which that may seem like a lot of movies, but that's like not even a third. The first appearance was in the Scrappy shows in like the 80s. They weren't really mysteries, but they were kind of like more Looney Tune-ish gag episodes. They usually have like 2 or 3 per episode, so they were shorter bits too, but they were just played for laughs. There were also real monsters and ghosts during Shaggy's Red Shirt era in the 80s. During these 3, Boo Brothers, Ghoul School, and Reluctant Werewolf, they were more goofy. And 13 Ghosts was a little more serious. They took a bit of a darker approach in the late 90s, early thousands movies. We got Zombie Island, Witch's Ghost, Alien Invaders, Cyber Chase. These ones are a little bit darker and quite better than these ones. The 13 Ghosts show and the Zombie Island movie both had sequels in 2019, which both kind of retconned the monsters being real. They're both like, oh, was it actually real? Probably not. Monsters aren't real. These are kind of the biggest inconsistencies in this subject because they're the only times that they've gone back and said that the monsters weren't real in this previous movie. The last 2D animated film that I want to include is Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King. And this one's unique because at the end of the movie, they kind of question, was it real the whole time? Maybe it was just a dream or whatever. And that's the only time that they've retconned it. I don't know if it's really a retcon, but they've questioned the reality of the supernatural within the same movie. I seem to remember like something weird going on in Scooby-Doo, like the Kiss movie. They did a movie with Kiss. Something to do with like aliens. What is this? What's going on? It felt like, I think they just wanted to simulate what LSD feels like for this movie. I don't remember anything that happens in the plot. Yeah, it's worth a watch if you like Kiss, I guess. Now, the live action and theatrical release movies, they got to stand out. They got to be different. And, the best way to do that? Real monsters. These are all from the live action movies. They all had real monsters in them. Although, in the original ones, these top two, it was like a big deal. They're like, oh, the monsters are real. This is insane. And in the bottom two, these are like the Cartoon Network ones. It was kind of like, it just kind of happened. They're like, oh, I guess we got to fight real monsters now. So, a little different between them. Scoob also featured like something to do with Greek mythology, and like I didn't really follow that one either. I didn't pay attention too much. Last and certainly not least, opposite of least, best, is Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which is a TV show. And this is peak Scooby-Doo. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it. Go watch it. It's only like 50 episodes. It's like 2 seasons, but it's great. The general pattern I'm seeing here, this is this sort of darkness, how goofy it is versus how dark it is, and then we have the quality of the film. And you can see there's sort of a correlation here. The darker the approach they take, the better it ends up. Basically, if you're going to do real monsters in Scooby-Doo, you got to take like a darker, grittier approach, or it doesn't really work that well. What would be cool is like a live action, like for adult audiences, gritty Scooby-Doo show, which fans have tried and got a cease and desist. Whatever. Warner Brothers should make their own. Although I'm a little worried it might end up like Riverdale. So maybe it's best just to be happy with Mystery Incorporated. So, is the supernatural real in Scooby-Doo? Well, I don't know. The show doesn't take a firm stance, and neither will I. It varies from show to show and movie to movie. They're all different universes. Some of these universes have real monsters. Some of them don't. That's just what happens when you're in the multiverse. Basically, this whole video was about my Scooby-Doo multiverse theory. Now, I'd like to conclude how I started with a quote from my boy, Freddie Prinze Jr. Take it away, Freddie.
It was a talking dog, you know what I mean?
So true, King. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you liked this video. If you want to hear more about Scooby-Doo, I could talk about Scooby-Doo a lot. So I could make a video about sort of the history of the show and all of my opinions about Scooby-Doo that I didn't include in this video. Or I might not do that, and I'll make a video about something else. Or I might never make a video again. Not even I know. If you enjoyed this, be sure to like and subscribe.